Hello, my name is Perry and I'm 28 years old. This event actually has this huge backstory behind it. I come from a complicated family, to say the least, but this incident will revolve around my pathetic excuse of a father, and I'm only speaking about this because I need to rant about everything that happened somewhere. My dad had married my mom when they were only 19. You see, my mom got pregnant with me then. They were supposed to be a casual fling only, but well, that couldn't happen anymore. My dad had initially wanted to leave, but his parents threatened to cut him off if he abandoned his child. So you can imagine the mindset with which my dad was entering into parenthood. My mom came from a religious family, so they got married pretty quickly. When I was born, my dad was barely around. All of my earliest memories were with my mom itself. I remember hearing them fight a lot. Mom would always be crying while my dad yelled at her. He used to tell her that he was miserable all because of her. I remember not liking him for a long while. Even though there was a lot of negativity in my house, my mom made sure to shield me from it all to the best of her abilities. My mom was diagnosed with late-stage cancer when I was 6, and she was gone within a year. Of course, I was devastated. I would cry and scream for her, and that only seemed to get my dad even angrier. He never fully abandoned me, but I was almost always at my grandparents' place. A year after my mom passed away, Dad got married to my stepmom, Stacy. Stacy had 3 children of her own. Around the same time, Dad's business had started to take off. He was making enough money to buy a mansion-sized house for all of us to live in. But all of that meant nothing much to me because it was all just hell. Stacy hated me. She actively tried to make my life hell. She always insisted that I call her mom, even though I told her that she was never going to be my mom. Dad also took her side, and I was often grounded for weeks because I refused to call her mom. I remember one time Dad and Stacy cornered me when I was 13 years old and asked me to let Stacy adopt me. Perry, we have something important to discuss with you. I want to adopt you as my child too. No, I told you, you're not my mom, and you won't ever be. I do not remember saying that I'm asking you. That's unfair. You barely gave me time to process Mom's death to begin with. You brought a whole new woman into my life and you expected me to call her Mom from the start? I don't want another mom. I had the best one. Get over it, Perry. It happened years ago. What was so perfect about your stupid mother anyway? All she did was make my life miserable. At least she was there for me. All you ever did was make her cry. Perry, this is no way to speak to your father. Whatever. I'm going to my room. Things only got worse from there. Dad stopped looking my way entirely. He refused to have a conversation with me unless it was to yell at me for something Stacy or her kids complained about. I tried to have at least some form of a relationship with him, but he made it explicitly clear that he disliked me. And Stacy didn't make things better for me. She kept telling me that I was the black sheep of the family because I refused to let go of my mom. She told me that I was a painful reminder of her to my dad, and that if I just gave in, my life would be easier. Of course, I never listened to a word of what she said. When both of them realized what they wanted was never going to happen, they resorted to ignoring everything regarding me. I was left alone to fend for myself. By this time, I was around 14. I was given a monthly allowance to survive on, and that was about it. I wanted to run away from home, but my grandparents on both sides had passed away, and I had no contact with any other family member. While I struggled, my step-siblings lived lavish lives. There was not a thing they didn't get, regardless of whether they asked for it or not. They had all the latest gadgets and all the best things in life. They went to these expensive private schools and had an allowance that was at least 3 times more than mine. This only made me angrier because these kids were younger than me. What had I done that was so wrong? I was still my father's daughter. I tried to talk to him about it, but he wouldn't even engage me. He would walk past me like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, Stacy would smirk at me and offer fake sympathy. When I turned 16, my monthly allowance stopped. I was told to get a job and sustain myself that way. Of course, I was exhausted every single day. Juggling school and work was tiring, but no one really cared. The only solace I had was my best friend and the thought that once I turned 18, I would have access to the trust fund my mom set up for me. My mom came from a pretty wealthy family. As soon as she found out she was pregnant, she set up a trust fund in my name. When my grandparents passed away, my inheritance was put into the trust fund. Would I have liked the money at that point itself? Yeah, but life was not going to be easy that way. I think my breaking point was when I was 17. I had already been supporting myself because my dad spent everything he earned on his stepkids. I had begun to find money missing from my wallet. Initially, it was only small amounts, but then it started to get bigger. Of course, I freaked out, but I couldn't really point fingers at anyone because I had no proof of anything. Of course, I didn't rule out the possibility that I was misplacing my money. So I started saving all my bills and keeping accounts of every purchase I made. When I still found money disappearing, I decided to keep all my money in my account itself. I figured it would be tiring to keep having to withdraw money whenever I needed cash, but as long as I wasn't losing money, it didn't matter. And then the money started disappearing from my account. I was furious. I knew for sure that I wasn't the one who was spending it. I went through my transactions online and found out that money had been transferred from my account to my stepsister's account. I saw red at that point. I confronted my stepmom about it because I knew that talking to my stepsister would do nothing. Your daughter has been stealing money from me. You better put her in her place. Stealing? Oh, honey, I doubt that she would steal from you. Well, look here. These are my bank statements, and they clearly show that money has been sent from my account to hers. Maybe you sent her the money because she asked you to? I know I didn't. She never even asked me. Look, why don't you just put this behind you, yeah? She's your sister after all. She must have needed a little money. How can I put this behind me? I'm the one responsible for myself. There's never enough money for my needs. So when your daughter steals from me, how do I continue to survive? Stop being dramatic. All she took was $40. She didn't only take $40. She's been stealing from me for months now. I've been struggling for a while now, but none of you guys seem to care. You know what? I'll stop being dramatic when you pay me back the $300 she took from me. How could you be so selfish? It's your sister. She's not. Even if she was, any reasonable parent would have reimbursed what she took from me. Oh, so you think I'm being unreasonable? Yes, obviously. Wait till your dad hears about this. I groaned because I knew where that was going to go. But at that point, I had given up hope. I knew that whatever my dad heard from his lovely wife was going to trump everything I said. I knew at that moment that I couldn't go on living that way. I began packing all my things while I waited for my dad to come back home from work. The only reason I didn't leave immediately was because I had hoped that he would listen to me. I wanted to give him one last chance. But since there was a large possibility that he would ignore everything I said, I made arrangements for my stay at my best friend's place. Her parents were more than happy to help me out. I only had a few more months until I turned 18. Once I turned 18, I would have been able to get my own place. I had enough saved up for at least a small deposit, and my best friend's parents also offered to help, so I knew that everything would turn out all right for me regardless of what my dad said. That evening, I heard my dad walk into the house, and I heard Stacy talking to him. While she was talking to him, my stepsister, who had been the one who was stealing from me, peeked into my room and smirked at me. She told me that I had made a big mistake by telling her mom about what she had been doing. She planned to make my life hell, so she wished me all the luck in the world. She left before I could get a single word out. I knew then and there that I wanted to get out for sure. There was no way that I was going to be staying in that house anymore because no one, and I mean no one, would listen to anything I said. My dad would never even raise his voice against his stepkids, and Stacy thinks they're just little angels. Just as I was about to get ready to leave, I heard my dad angrily walking up the stairs. I quickly stuffed away my packed things under my bed and sat on my bed while trying to look like I was simply reading a book. My heart raced with anxiety as I waited for my dad to come in and start yelling at me. "You called your mom unreasonable, Perry? That is beyond disrespectful. Did she tell you why I called her unreasonable? Just because one of your sisters took some money from you isn't a good enough reason. She didn't take money from me. She stole it from me." Oh, wow. So first you're disrespectful to your mom, and now you're just outright lying to me. I'm not lying. I have proof. I don't care. That proof is probably fake anyway. You'll really do anything so you can get attention, won't you? Why would I purposely lose money to get attention? So you can get money from us, obviously. Why do I have to get money from you, when as your daughter it's your duty to provide for me? Don't backtalk me. You're grounded for a month. But not a single word. You're such a disappointment. With that went my plan of running away. Well, at least for a month. My dad walked out of my room with my laptop and my phone. I had no other option but to wait until I was not grounded anymore. Of course, I felt super sad and angry. I was upset that my dad had always chosen his other family over me. At that moment, I wished that I had my mom more than anything. I spent the next few days just crying. That month was hell for me. My stepsister kept up with her word and actually made my life hell. She kept pulling these pranks on me that always involved me getting hurt or embarrassed in some way. Like she once added Nair to my shampoo, and thankfully I figured something was off with the way she was insistent on me washing my hair that day. Another time she spilled oil on the kitchen floor and screamed, knowing that I would rush to her. I ended up slipping and falling pretty hard. She never got scolded because they were always just pranks. If anything, that got laughs from my dad and Stacy. They always applauded her for her genius pranks. By the end of the month, I was so ready to leave the place behind me. I couldn't even call that place home because I only ever felt uncomfortable there. On the day that I got my phone and laptop back, I waited until everyone in the house fell asleep to text my best friend. She came and picked me up. I managed to sneak out of the house without making a single sound, and in that moment, I had never felt freer and more excited for the future. From then on, my life only took a turn for the better. My best friend's parents gave me a room in their house and treated me like I was their own child. My money was mine to keep because they took care of my every need. I was truly blessed to have such kind people in my life. As soon as I turned 18, I was given access to the trust fund my mom had set up for me. It had more than enough money to get me through college and take care of me for a little while after I graduated as well. I got into my dream college and I moved states to attend it. I was a stellar student and I worked on the side too. I knew that I had more than enough money to live well, but I didn't want to solely depend on the trust fund. I worked at a local coffee shop to live well. I was able to rent a small apartment and I finally felt free and alive. I barely heard anything from my dad. I got one text from him asking me where I was the morning after I left. I simply told him I was safe and that was the end of all conversation between him and me. Yeah, it hurt like crazy that he never bothered to check on how I was doing. I still followed him on social media and I saw pictures of all the places he and his family went to every other month or so. For a while, I even wondered if I was the one who had been holding them back for so long. Was I the one making them unhappy? But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized how messed up it was that my dad blatantly ignored me constantly. It was messed up how he would treat his family better than me while I lived with him. I knew I couldn't stay silent like that for too long. I knew that I wanted to get back at him in whatever little way I could. I got a bunch of my friends to leave negative reviews on my dad's products on every site possible. My dad worked as an app developer and in general with data development. I knew just how important reviews were for his business. Anyway, over my college years, I managed to make a lot of friends and acquaintances. Each one of them negatively rated my dad's stuff for a while using different accounts. Eventually, though, I forgot about it. I guess I felt like I had done enough damage as it was. Not to mention, I wasn't seeing any actual results, and it felt like I was just hating into a void, so I let it go. About 6 years after I moved out, I was in a much better place. I had a well-paying job after graduating from university with honors. I was able to rent a better place and even managed to get myself into a good relationship. I was living a great life. And then my dad turned up at my door. It was a regular weekend when I heard a knock at the door. I went to check the security camera and I was shocked to see my dad standing there waiting to be buzzed in. I contemplated letting him in. On one hand, I wanted nothing to do with him any longer. On the other hand, I was way too curious to find out why he suddenly wanted to meet. I decided to let him in. "Hey, honey." "Honey? What's with this sudden sweetness?" "Sudden? I've always been this way with you." "Oh, just cut it out already." "Why are you always so mean? This is why I could never bond with you." "You can't be serious. You went 5 years without talking to me because I'm mean? If that's what you've come to talk to me about, you can leave." No, that's not it. I needed to talk to you about something really important." "Well, what is it?" "I see that you're living a very good life now. Is it all your mother's money?" "Why? Do you only think I'm capable of being successful because of my mom's money?" "Well, no, but I'm just wondering." "At least I had one parent that cared about me." "Oh, don't be like that, Perry." "Just tell me what you came here to tell me. The more I listen to you talk, the angrier I get." It was true. I really did begin to feel immense amounts of rage the more he stood in my living room and talked. Somehow he did not feel remorseful at all. He was purposely saying things that he knew would irritate me. The only reason I let him stay is because I was too damn curious to find out what it was that he wanted to tell me. Dad shuffled around on his feet and looked around my apartment for a minute, so I figured he would much rather have this conversation while sitting down. I led him to the couch and brought him a glass of water. "Okay, you're comfortable now. Spill." "So, I'm in trouble right now." "Trouble? What do you mean?" "My company went under." "Do you mean that you've had to shut it down?" "Yeah, it's been rough. I mean, everything I built has just come crashing down so hard." "How did it happen?" "I just made a bunch of terrible business decisions because I had a lot of negative reviews coming in for a long while. Those decisions only led to a loss of business. I had to close it down before I lost even more money." "How's Stacy and her kids?" "About that. They left me." "Left? Why? Weren't you like the best thing that happened to them?" "Apparently they were only there for the money. Stacy left me the day my company shut down, so it was like a double kill for me." "So what are you going to do now?" "Well, I was thinking that since you had all your mom's money still with you, or at least a good portion of it, you should help me out." "Should? Why should I do anything for you?" "Because you have money and I'm your dad." "Well, you're not my dad. You haven't been my dad for years. As soon as you married Stacy, you stopped being my dad." "How can you say that?" "You ignored me for years. You didn't even provide for me. You had so much money and barely any of it went towards me. You deserve everything coming your way." "I didn't raise you to be so heartless." "That's about the only thing you actually taught me. Get out of my house." I could tell that he was hurt by the way I was treating him. But then again, the air of importance he walked in with made me want to punch him. And for him to just demand that I fork out money and help him out was beyond anything that I had even expected him to do. Dad tried to protest, but I told him the same advice he gave me every time I came to him for help. This is your problem, not mine. This is life. Get used to it. I could see that Dad wanted to tear his hair out of his scalp in frustration, and that sight truly made me feel great. I couldn't believe that the little thing I did could have had such a large impact. I'm not even kidding when I say that I had actually forgotten about it, and even about him for a while. Seeing him again reignited all the hatred and anger I felt towards him. Disowning him as my father only made things sweeter for me. Finally, I got to do to him what he did to me for nearly all my life. Dad did end up leaving shortly after that. It took a while for me to calm down from that experience, but I managed to continue living my life normally. Dad kept trying to text and call me. He would keep switching between begging me to help him and calling me a selfish, ignorant brat who had no values. Either way, I never paid him much attention. I learned over time that he had been bumming off a few family members. He's been struggling while Stacy actually was living her life. She managed to find another man to hook up to, and my dad was very, very salty about that. His social media was filled with nothing but hate towards her. Several family members came forward and asked me to take my dad in, but I blatantly refused. I explained my situation to them, and while some of them agreed with me, most of them told me to let everything go because he was family. I reminded them that he was their family too, so they were free to help him out. Life since then has been good once again. I received a promotion and I'll be getting married next year. I know I struggled a lot, but I'm glad that I had at least one parent who looked out for me enough that I was able to finally make it in life.